Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ellie Live. I'm Sonia, and tonight we're talking all things cruising. I've been joined by some of the biggest cruisers in our office. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Sonia. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Pete and Chelsea, thanks for joining us.
Ahoy, Captain.
Hello, sailor.
Does that mean I need to
Absolutely.
put the captain's hat on?
You've got a great Captain Stubing. we're going to say fans today.
Well, growing up as a child, the Love Boat was really all I referenced to cruising. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, I believe that you have a little clipboard here. Does that make you...
That makes me Julie McCoy. Yeah, Julie had an iconic clipboard and mine's empty, but I'm still hoping I'll remember what to say, but I can't compete with Julie. She was outstanding.
She
So
was
that would make
outstanding.
Chelsea and I just passengers, yes? Or
Well,
Paul, are we ever
they
just
are the most
passengers?
important.
There are always big name celebrity guests on the Love Boat.
That's true, that's
You've
true.
matched that today.
But things have definitely changed a lot since the Love Boat days, right, Pete?
Absolutely. The cruise industry has been transformed from those old days on the high seas. 1.3 million Australians took a cruise holiday last year.
Wow.
That's 1 in 20 Australians, which is remarkable.
Wow.
Speaking
that's a
of,
big number.
guys that are at home now, if you have any tips, questions around cruising, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to chip in. So send them all in the comments section and
We'll read them out.
read them out.
And also, I believe that we have a competition today for all our viewers. So, Pete, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on how they can win $100 towards their next Luxury Escapes getaway?
Yeah, happy to do so. The last time round when we did the New York special, you were tremendous, but we also had a competition to count the M&Ms. We thought M&Ms were iconic for New York. And today our budget's a bit smaller, so we've got a much smaller jar, but we've got a jar of Lifesavers. And so if you guess the number of, get close to guessing the number of Lifesavers, well, fizzies in the fruit tingles.
There's no lifesavers in there.
No.
Fruit
They've come a
tingles.
long way, Paul. They're lifesavers.
But Lifesavers make
Buy
them, right?
Lifesavers,
Yes.
yeah. And you get a credit from Luxury Escapes towards your next holiday.
Wonderful.
So any
do you want to
hints?
hold that up a little bit closer to
Any
the...
hints, Pete,
Yeah.
for the audience?
Yeah, well, it's less
Give
than
it a bit of a
1,000.
Less than 1,000.
Less than 1,000.
And more than one.
Certainly, it could be more than one. So start guessing. Put your suggestions in the comments section on the Facebook Live post.
And I can see them starting to come through now, so keep them
Fantastic.
coming. Wonderful. Now, Paul, you have some deals on Ellie Live at the moment for cruises.
We do.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
And as we spoke a couple of weeks ago, cruising's sort of new to Luxury Escapes, and we've been sourcing some content that we really feel is going to resonate with our members. And at the moment on the site we have a weekend taster cruise for those people who may never been cruising before. This cruise is out of Sydney on the Voyage of the Seas, which is a Royal Caribbean cruise. And for $499 per person,
Wow,
sharing a
that's
twin cabin,
So cheap.
3 days, 2 nights. So if you feel that you've never really been cruising, you want to get a feel of what it's
Good
like,
taster.
just
Yeah.
a taste what
Yeah.
it is. This cruise departs 1 to 3 December out of Sydney. And I think really just a nice introduction to go out and experience a cruise to nowhere, really.
Yeah.
So what, it
Sydney,
just
back to
goes
Sydney.
out and comes back again?
Pretty much.
You
Lovely.
can just relax. You can be up at the pool deck with a margarita for 3 days. It sounds perfect.
Sounds tough.
Some of us could do that. I couldn't do that anymore. It'd be 2 days and I'd have a break.
Sure, Paul.
But it includes all the basic stuff. So it's
Yeah,
just
all the meals are included.
all the meals,
There's
the
drink
shows.
packages available, shows, entertainment, and there's so much to do on this ship. But I think you've seen it up close and personal.
Yeah, I've been on the Royal Caribbean ships, and they're massive. They're huge. They're phenomenal. So if you want to hang out with Margarita on the top deck, you can do that.
Perfect,
But if
I'm
you want to
in.
enjoy an adventure park,
Yeah.
you can also do that as well.
That's
It's
your thing,
incredible.
right, Paul?
Live band, live entertainment.
And you don't
great
even have
food.
to catch a cab home.
Well, you don't. Or Uber these days. The second cruise we're feature on the site at the moment, I actually think is a really interesting cruise because it sort of tells us now that cruising's evolved into not just being all about being on board a ship, but experiencing destinations by unpacking once, you're on board the ship, and then you're really experiencing some very interesting ports. So it's a 17-night Argentina, Brazil and Uruguay cruise, which includes a 5-day, 4-night tour prior to jumping on a Holland American ship, and that the tour itself takes in the Iguazu Falls from both sides, so the Argentina and the Brazilian side, and then back into Buenos Aires, cruise down to Montevideo in Uruguay, returning back up into Buenos Aires, and dropping in some really nice ports. So again, you're not on the ship all the time. You're really experiencing a different culture, a different way of life, but coming back at night, relaxing into good food and having some entertainment and so forth. So that's a 17-night cruise. travelling early next year, and leading price from $4,990 per person. So
That's great.
jump on the site and have a look.
So
And
you
all
meant
inclusive, right?
Yeah.
All inclusive, yeah. There is some drink packages, so meals are all inclusive, the tours included, airfares included. The only thing you really need to worry about is how much you're going to drink and shop.
And so these cruises have really shifted away from that whole buffet experience, and that's kind of a little bit of a myth now, isn't it?
Yeah, and depending which cruise company you're operating on, there is obviously different options in dining. So some may still have the first session, second session, but a lot of the cruise ships are now moving towards free and easy. Really, they have so many restaurants on board, from light and casual to dress up on the bow ties, love boat aspect, and then
The captain's dinner.
the captain's dinner. And again, depending on how big the ship is, a lot of ships you range from 400 to 4,000 people on board. So there really is a cruise for everyone, really. Where maybe 20 years ago it was a little more narrow, but now it's such a broad range.
Yeah.
Whether it's European river cruising in Asia on the Mekong, or the Irrawaddy in Myanmar.
I just did that actually a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
The Irrawaddy was beautiful.
And so I think there really is something out there for everyone if you want to jump on a cruise.
I know you had the Queen Mary 2 on sale last
Yeah.
week, and that sold out very, very quickly.
In fact, I've been in the industry a long time. You couldn't tell, but
Definitely couldn't tell.
it is one of the fastest selling deals I've ever seen. It was amazing how it resonated with our members, and it went very well. And so much so we're actually now trying to source a few more cabins on that. So
Fantastic.
if you're thinking about going that, just stay tuned. We might get some more cabins out soon.
You mentioned food before, and the food experience is so extraordinary on board the ships.
Yeah.
Of course, in fact, most of the ships have now ditched the buffet. Pinot it stopped at about 3 years ago, so there's no more buffets on those ships. And most of the cruise lines have celebrity chefs involved too. So a lot of the Royal Caribbean ships have Jamie Oliver's restaurants on board, and Princess has Curtis Stone as a celebrity chef, and
Yeah.
Luke Mangan is on the P&O ships. And so the food offering is amazing. And there's not just one restaurant on board the ships. They usually have 4 or 5 different dining options, which is
So
amazing.
you don't feel like you're eating in the same restaurant
Yeah.
every night with the same people and the same food. Yeah, it's
And
a
on
great
the,
experience.
on the other end of the scale, I actually had a celebrity trainer on mine, Shannon
Shannon,
Ponton.
yeah.
Yeah, from The Biggest Loser. So we, after about 6 days of eating all you can eat, we then headed up to the top deck and did a big workout with Shannon, which was quite hard, I must admit. Very hard.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But Chelsea, you mentioned earlier that you also went snorkeling on your cruise.
Yeah, one of the best places to snorkel in the world, I think it was Isle of Pines, just out of New Caledonia. It was
lovely.
phenomenal, and these places don't have airports, so it's really quite untouched apart from the giant cruise ship coming in. It's something else. We actually swam with some turtles and got the locals to take us out on a boat, and it was quite phenomenal actually.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And you were travelling with your family.
Yeah, so family of 20, which is
Oh,
quite intense.
Wow, big family.
Yeah, but what we found with cruising especially was that normally we would go on these family trips. We try to do one annually, and the stress that comes with it. So I think we went to Thailand the year before, and one family wanted to go to this restaurant and the other one wanted to go to the other, and day trips were a nightmare. But for cruising it was just, guys, we'll meet you where we see you, and you're not going to lose each other, or you're bound to sort of find each other on one of the decks with a margarita in hand, and there was just no stress. It was
And
great.
I guess for families too with children, the parents can feel safe that the kids are playing in the kids club and they're
Yeah,
all in the same
absolutely.
venue, so they can go off and swim in the pool or lounge around with a cocktail, and their kids are safe.
My little cousins it was like 5th heaven for them. They had, we had 7 little cousins under 8, and basically parents were just like, have fun kids. And then we had all the way up to my grandmother as well, who loved it. You could find her in the casinos most days.
Just while we're talking, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please post on Facebook and we'll answer them as best we can.
Absolutely.
So jump on board right now.
Or if you want to share some tips, like how to choose the best cabin.
And keep sending through your guesses on the lifesavers too. Remember that $100 credit towards your next Luxury Escapes getaway.
Now you mentioned it was good for us. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Go on.
You mentioned that the cruise ships are great for kids. You know, cruise ships are actually okay for dogs in some instances.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a big dog man. But,
I know that, yes. Hi to Pete's dogs watching at home.
They actually would be.
Enough. But on Queen Mary 2, they actually have kennels on the top deck.
Really?
And they've got a full-time kennel master.
Wow.
So when the ship's
Wow.
doing the transatlantic
phenomenal.
crossing, which is the one Paul was selling last week, you can actually take your dogs on board, and it's
That's
quite an
fantastic.
experience. Yeah.
Just a matter of getting your dog between here and Southampton.
That,
Probably.
that could be a slight challenge. Yeah.
Let's hope
I'll
they
give it a
fly
try.
well.
Worth it.
Now, message in a bottle, pun
Oh,
intended.
what's this?
But I've been told, Paul, that this is how you choose what cruises you put up on the site next. Is that true?
A very technical way of choosing your cruises.
How
like
do
a
they
lucky
come to
dip.
us from the other end of the world? Or?
Well, yeah, I just go out on St Kilda Beach every now and then. And, this is the one I picked up this week, so let's see what's coming up.
Shall we? Is this a trick?
I might have a little clue.
Should I read them out or should I?
It might be good to remind me.
Okay, so it says on here that our next cruise is coming up. We have one in the Mekong, so a
Yeah.
Mekong Cruise, which
Yes.
is a river cruise.
That was along the Mekong Delta.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
it
is
actually
slightly
is,
different to a big ship cruise experience, isn't it?
There's only 36 cabins on this ship, so very boutique, for want of a better term. Really nice itinerary because it actually takes in Siem Reap. You have 3 nights at the Park Height in Siem Reap, and then you jump on board the cruise and come down the Mekong and end up in Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, and have 2 nights at Intercontinental and things. So it's literally a 8-day, 7-night package. Really nice little itinerary to experience. Asia in a different format. A lot of people go and line a beach or explore the big cities.
The hustle bustle. That would
And
be
the
a lot,
Mekong,
right?
if you've not seen it, is just a phenomenal river.
It
It
is.
really is. And I think
It's just so alive, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just you think that there's so many villages just dotted along the way that you get to really experience the true nature of sort of a bygone era.
and what a lifeline it is to the people who live along there. They use the river as a resource, and you're cruising down, you see the fishermen, you see all sorts of things going on the river itself. It probably reminds me of the old days of the Mississippi and the riverboat cruising down there, but now
steamers.
it's just opening up. Well,
The old days when you were a kid.
yeah, when I grew up, I won't tell you what cruising meant when I was young. It was about driving a car up and down the main street of Mildura.
Hang on, are we still on PG time?
It's very different when I was young too.
So that's I think that Mekong is going to be really nice, and that'll be, I think, released by the end of this week.
Beautiful.
That's incredible. I did a 5-day bike ride along the Mekong Delta a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and cardio is not one of my favourite things to do. So if I had the choice to swap a bike ride for a cruise, I would have done it
Yeah.
in a heartbeat.
You love that, I think.
Yeah.
Were you
I'd
going
waive it.
against wind or?
It was a long 5 days.
Now, the next one on here is pretty exciting, actually. This is probably a really great time to visit this country. So we've got a Cuba Cruise with flights.
Correct.
And I mean, for anyone who hasn't been to Cuba yet, it's probably the best time to go there now before it kind of changes and becomes a
the
McDonald's
commercialisation
city.
of the city,
Yeah.
of the country, is going to be probably fairly rapid now that the borders are opening up a bit more. So this cruise includes flights on Qantas to Miami, and then
Fantastic.
cruising out of Miami down to Cuba. And I think you're right that it is on an Azamara quest, which is.
It's a beautiful vessel.
Yeah, it's not so big as the.
It's more
the Voy-
boutique.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so around
yeah.
about 600 passengers in total, and meals and drinks are included on this ship. So it's a fully inclusive package. And I think, again, if you want to go and experience a destination that is, probably been on everyone's bucket list, I want to go and experience Cuba. Now's the time to do it, as you say. That it will change with more tourists going in there. So I think, this is going to be a great cruise. We have limited capacity, so. It'll be out again next week, so if you are looking at it, jump on board and buy it.
And speaking of mojitos, really, you can't get a better mojito than where it originated in Cuba, right?
True.
Yep.
So I should book then, right?
Definitely. Yeah,
Done
definitely.
deal. Sign me up.
Definitely. And then the lucky last one is a Sydney to Hawaii.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, you're right.
I have the answers.
These bottles are massive.
I know. What else do we want to
There's all
ask
the
it?
answers.
Any other questions? Send them through. We'll ask them all.
Again, this is on a Royal Caribbean ship, the Voyager of the Seas, and in a similar class to, the Rhapsody of the Seas, similar class to the Voyager of the Seas.
Huge.
Yeah, big. And this cruise is actually, again, takes in some really interesting destinations. So again, out of Sydney, and then via Picton, New Zealand, Wellington, and then across to Papeete and Bora Bora in French Polynesia, Tahiti.
Wow.
And then finishing up in Hawaii with one night in Waikiki, and then fly home back into Sydney. So again, what we're trying to provide is a opportunity to really experience different destinations on cruises we feel are going to bring great value for money, a great experience and seeing some destinations that generally you may not think about travelling if you're just going for a 4 or 5 night holiday. So those three really give a pretty diverse range of what you can buy these days to go on a cruise.
That's great. I think
Cuba.
one of the best things as well on being on a cruise ship is you actually come back rejuvenated. I think we've all been on holidays where we come back more tired than when you go.
Yep.
Cruise ship kind of doesn't give you a choice. It's like sit down, enjoy the ride, and
you don't have to go too far, really, do you?
Yeah,
no.
absolutely.
Now, I'm just going to go to one of the questions from our viewers. So, Natasha Tsalikas asks, I get seasick. Do you have any tips on what ship to choose? Pete, do you want to give us a bit of an insight onto how to avoid
Yeah, well, absolutely.
choosing the wrong ship?
One of my biggest fears before I moved into the job with cruising was seasickness. I've got a really sensitive tummy.
We kind of know that too.
There's no secrets here. But the technology in the ships is incredible. They've got these things called stabilisers, which are like giant wings on an airplane that jut out from the side of the ship, just underneath the water, to keep the ship really stable. Of course, if you have any concerns, you can pop a ginger tablet. But I never experienced any problems, and I've been on dozens of cruises.
Yeah.
You're okay, even after the mojitos?
Yeah, even after the mojitos. Oh, maybe I could blame it on that. No, even we had a really rough day at sea, but in the ship we were at dinner, fine dining, and you wouldn't have told. It's
quite stable.
Really, it's amazing how quickly you do find your sea legs once you're on the ship. And you your body adjusts fairly quickly. And I've done a few cruises, not as many as you, Pete, but enough to understand that depending on what ship you're on and where you're going, the ship will almost dictate what the level of it needs to be to make sure it is a calm trip. So, Natasha, really don't worry about seasickness. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, one of the secrets is actually choosing where your cabin is on the ship as well.
That's true.
I think if you're a bit sensitive about seasickness, don't go at the very ends of the ship. Try and go around the centre, and try and go further down, lower down the floors instead of the top deck. But that's only if you're sensitive. It's really unlikely you'll experience a problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you're really, really sensitive, I mean, river cruising is probably the alternative to that, and that's
ways.
kind of my choice in cruising is that it's constantly stable, really. You get to experience the same sort of feeling of being in a boat, but you're not in the high seas, really.
Ship. Just ship.
Ship.
So there you go. I got in trouble on my first day. Well, what is river cruising like? I've never done a river cruise.
I love it. I think I guess similar to what Chelsea said before about being able to get into places where there aren't any airports, so you can't fly in. River cruising is a great way to dock and see little villages along the way. It's an intimate experience, so there aren't a lot of passengers on board. My favourite thing about being on a boat on a ship is that I unpack once, and I travel with about 20 pairs of shoes, so for me that's a really easy thing to do. So you kind of get to experience the best of travelling without actually having to move from one hotel to another. So and these days there are so many options on, like you said before, about the celebrity chefs on board, and a lot of them are joining the river cruises. So I think it's a great way to travel. Yeah, it's a great way to travel.
And particularly European river cruising, which has just exploded over the last probably 10 or 15 years. And there's, again, a lot of choice on what itineraries you can do, whether it be the Rhine, the Rhone. And it's really, again, the proximity to the water. The ships aren't, way above it. So you really feel like you're actually in the river and experiencing what the river's going to bring to the equation. I think that's cruising. It is a relationship with the water and the land. And the river cruising really brings that to play, because literally on a balcony, there's a river there, looking out. If you go past, in Germany, down the Rhine, the Loreley Rock and those sort of places, which you read about in books, but you're really up close and personal with it.
Yeah, but even like in places like the Amazon, which I was lucky enough to do a couple of years ago, you're so close to the banks that you actually get to experience the wildlife even when you're on board. So you don't have to wait till you dock and get off to actually experience the environment around you. So I love it. I think it's a great difference to sitting on a bus or travelling, by land. It's definitely changed.
So I think if you're living in an urban area, and as soon as you hit those high seas, you literally see no land around. It's like, I'm free, I'm calm, no one's going to hassle me here. Might not be Wi-Fi on board. Such a shame, but
no, it's improving. It's improving.
They do have routers now on some boats, so you could still log on.
No, my bill was quite astronomical last time.
Now, Pete, I just wanted to ask you. You mentioned a little bit earlier that
There's a fan call coming in.
The popularity of cruising has just risen so much with the Australian market. How much has it actually changed?
Yeah, so for the last 10 years, like every year for the last 10 years, there's been 20% growth year on year on year. So, 10 years ago, it was a tiny fraction of the market was cruising. Now, as I mentioned, 1.3, just under 1.3 million Australians taking a cruise holiday. And to put that into context, that's sort of one for every 20 Australians took a cruise holiday just last year.
Wow.
Which means that per head of population, Australians are now actually the #1 cruisers in the world.
Wow.
So we've smashed the US
Why
market.
is that, do you think?
I think Australians love a getaway,
Yeah.
but we're surrounded by sea. Like, our country was made for enjoying
cruising.
the water, for cruising. And actually, the numbers show that about 75% of people, Australians taking cruises, are going on domestic cruises or cruises around the South Pacific. But the real growth is moving, looking at places like heading to Hawaii or heading around Europe or enjoying a river cruise. So
But I think your point about the domestic stuff is also important, that there's been a lot of infrastructure being spent on new ports that allow these big ships to come into, and a lot of the big cruise lines like Royal Caribbean are positioning, Princess Cruises, positioning ships down here. So the domestic market, domestic and New Zealand, there's so much more choice and opportunity to jump on a cruise now than maybe even 10 years ago. So that's really driving, the driver behind capacity is obviously people saying, well, it's there, let's do it.
Yeah, and the airlines are helping too with jumping on board and doing one-way connections and kind of working with the cruise companies.
The evolution of that exactly that, the onset of low-cost carriers and the way their fares have been structured has opened up, fly one way, cruise back, whatever it may be. And so, some of the best deals out there are repositioning cruises. We've got talking about ships coming out of Europe down to Asia, so coming in the Middle East and down to Singapore. Wow. They're the sort of things we're looking at, and I think the long term, particularly for Luxury Escapes, is to make sure that every week we're bringing great value cruises to our members. And please, if you've got any ideas that we should be selling, let us know.
Now, I'm just going to quickly go to a comment from one of our viewers. So Christine Jansen or Hansen, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, says I've done quite a few of Luxury Escapes packages, even one last week. They are always awesome. Thank you.
Thanks,
Keep travelling with us. Thank you. And keep sending through your comments and your questions. The guys are expert cruisers, so if you've got any other tips that you want to share with our viewers before we finish up, please feel free to do that now.
Now, you mentioned, agreeing, please send them in, but you mentioned domestic cruising, and I think one of the amazing things cruising has done for the domestic market, like for the Australian market, is open up places like Eden and King Island and areas where a lot of Australians mightn't have gone to before, but now there's like the local cruise industry taking people around to see them. There was even one recently I saw down your part of the world to Tasmania. It was a food and wine cruise.
What we do best, of course.
And cheese and cheese, and that was like a 4-day escape. And
beautiful.
But it's amazing to see that the money's being sort of brought back into domestic tourism as well through cruise.
And what it also has done is actually opened up Australia as a big cruise destination internationally. So it's we all know the Americans love their cruising, so they're coming down in droves. And so jumping on a cruise these days is not just jumping on a cruise and it's going to be a cruise full of Australians. It's going to be a multinational mix on board. So you're going to meet people from right across the globe, so you're going to make friends. So next time you go on a holiday, you might want to jump on a cruise with these guys in the Middle East or the
And that's what people are doing now. They're kind of finding sort of cruising groups and they kind of organise their travel around that.
Now, we met some amazing people. We actually got offshore and totally forgot to take cash with us. I mean, most cruises are cashless. So we get offshore and with my brother at the time, and we go to pay this turtle guy for our experience and have absolutely no cash.
The turtle guy? Who's this turtle guy?
Isn't he from Entourage?
Well, basically, this couple was so generous, and I think they thought, well, you're not going anywhere. We're going to find you on the cruise at one stage. We'll pay your fare. We run into them like 3 days later at the bar, and they're like, these are the people that owe us all the money, and it was happy days.
Drinks on the bar?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Guys, keep sending through your guesses. I don't think we've received the right guess yet. So
some more hints?
I think we should give another hint. What do you think?
So we've said it's less than 1,000. I'm going to go and say it's less than 500.
I'm going to say
that's big of you, Pete.
it's actually it's one less than that now. God, I haven't had a fruit tingle for so long. That's actually lovely.
Lifesaver, Sonia. Lifesaver.
Made by Lifesavers.
What I also love on the cruise ships, I love the staff. The crew on board are incredible. I think most of the ships have at least like a 1 to 2, like two staff members. So
Yeah.
one staff member to 2 passengers, or even one-on-one. And
Yeah.
so the level of service you get is through the roof.
And the entertainment factor too. I mean, there are so many cruise
Yeah.
boats now, ships with cabaret shows and magicians and concerts and performers and dancers, and it's
There's
just
so much on board. I mean, obviously it's great to get off port, but I think sometimes when you're on the ship, you're struggling to fit everything in. You've kind of got to schedule it all out and make sure that you get the most of everything.
Well, yeah, if you look at Royal Caribbean on some of their new cruise ships, they've got Dodgem cars
Yeah.
and they've got
It's
these
phenomenal,
new crane. What's the view, Pete? With this big
Oh,
board.
it's like the London Eye kind of that
it
wraps
goes
around
out
the other
and
ship.
You stand out over the ship and you're looking back at the ships with this, amazing things they're bringing us. So
Water slides, like massive water
Yeah.
slides.
Yeah, the
huge,
carnival that I went on last year had
Carnival
this
Spirit.
huge water slide. I think it's the green.
The Green Thunder.
Green
It is
Thunder.
terrifying.
It is actually terrifying.
Like, I was so scared I couldn't scream.
I think what it really is telling us is that a cruise is not just for the retirees or the newlyweds. There really is something for everyone.
Absolutely.
Disney have their own cruise ship, so taking kids on a Disney ship, how much fun would that be?
Yeah.
So again, there's just so much option out there that if you're ever thinking about going for a cruise, don't think it's not for you. Really look at what's out there, and there'll be something for you, and you'll love
Absolutely.
it.
just one quick tip before we wrap up, and a quick mention of the 2 cruise boats that we've got. Sorry, cruise ships. I keep getting that wrong. That we've got
I think
live.
it's the Love Boat.
I think I
Yes,
yeah,
it's
love
tricky.
it.
Yeah,
It's the
they-
music
they
on in the
ruined it for everyone.
background.
So the Sydney Taster, 4-day, 3-night out of Sydney in December, and the South American Cruise, again, I think March next year, 17 days with a 5-day, 4-night cruise tour and a 12-night cruise.
And that's on the Holland America line.
Holland America, the Zambia.
MS Sandown, yeah.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
The beautiful ship.
Yeah.
Okay. And Chelsea, one last tip to our viewers about why they should cruise?
I think just leave your
Inhibitions?
inhibitions behind, take to the high seas and just enjoy it. Just grab yourself a margarita and go to top deck. I'm sure that's my only tip, really.
I heard that loud and clear.
Pete, your last tip?
Oh, my last it is just to be open to different things. My favourite holiday of all time, I've taken a lot, was taking my mum on board QM2, Queen Mary 2. We just went from Melbourne to Sydney, and it was an experience that we always will talk about. It was magic. So just be open to trying something different. I'm so grateful that I did.
Wonderful. And Paul, one last one from you?
Yeah, similar to Pete, I think that just look for what you really want to do. Cruising is all things to all people. There's so much choice out there, and as I say, be open-minded. We'll be putting great cruises up, so if there's not something you like on the site now, maybe next week there will be.
Wonderful. Well, that's pretty much a wrap from us, guys. Thank you for joining us. Keep sending through your guesses, and we will notify the winner over the next 24 hours, and we'll see you next time on LA Live. Thanks for joining.
Ahoy.
Bye. Thank you.